attended the Pre-Catholic Christian Beliefs in Bakersfield on Friday, April 7th. The people in my group are Abby, Benton, and Hudson, and we went to St. George Greek Orthodox Church, St. Damiana Coptic Christian Church, and Hummus Express.
When we went to St. George Greek Orthodox Church, I really liked it. It was a small church, but it was really cool inside. There was a lot of paintings, and I guess this church has been up for 90 years now. And a cool thing about the church, when I was asking questions, is that the church has many various ethnic backgrounds, including Greek, Russian, Ukrainian, Romanian, and Egyptian people. I thought that was very cool about the church.
During our trip, a thought-provoking moment for me was to see how open the people at the Greek Orthodox Church were to our questions. I didn't really expect them to tolerate us, but they did. It was kind of cool. One of the concepts I guess we learned in class that used there was culture's like an iceberg. You can only see what's on top. And kind of helped when we learned about, the traditions and the way they act. Another concept was culture is like wearing a pair of glasses. It helps you see clearly. And people there at the Greek Orthodox Church, it helped when they told us about the traditions. It's kind of interesting. It helped me see, what they did a little bit better. If I got a redo, I probably would have dressed a little bit better. Yeah. And one moment that best sums up everything during the trip was I guess when we learned what the people at the Greek Orthodox Church did, what they do and what they taught. So it was a neat experience.
Throughout this trip, the one thing that I experienced that we have learned about this semester is culture shock. When we went to St. Damiana Coptic Christian Church, it was nothing that I expected, especially because the name of the church is Christian. It was so cool to see the different ways that people worship, because during my experience at this church, I experienced something that I had not ever in my whole life. It was a huge culture shock for me because I did not even understand the language that they were speaking.
The most thought-provoking moment of my visit was when we visited the St. Damiana Coptic Christian Church. I was interested in why the women of the church wore cloth headpieces, and why they began praying in a standing position and went into a kneeling position, and repeated this process. I experienced cultural shock, which is a feeling of disorientation experienced by someone who is suddenly subjected to an unfamiliar culture. This happened to me, and I was unsure what was going on and what was being sung or said at this church.
A concept that I experienced during this trip was the use of valid generalizations and stereotypes. This is a vital thing to know when going through the experiences of this trip. An example of the difference between valid generalizations and stereotypes was that I thought that everyone of the Christian religion practiced their religion similarly to the way that I practice my religion. But once we arrived at the St. Damiana Coptic Christian Church, I realized that all of the different churches are so different because they're all different types of Christianity.
The church not knowing what to do because I wasn't familiar with the culture. I kept debating on putting the cloth over my head like them, but I didn't know if the women would find this offensive. A concept I needed for this field trip was understanding stereotypes, which are ideas of a particular type of person or thing and how they are negative to people and their cultures. I show that stereotyping is negative because I believe Christians all spoke in English and had the same practices, but this was an invalid assumption, and I was able to recognize my stereotype and prevent myself from believing more stereotypes. If I could redo my experience, I would have interviewed more people and talked to the pastor to get a better insight on their culture The moment that best sums up the whole experience for me was when we went to this church and I realized there's multiple forms of Christianity and we all have our own unique way of expressing and worshiping our values and religious practices. I would highly recommend this trip for any student just so they can get a better outlook on different cultures.
Something that happened during my trip that shows my experience of culture shock was the first moment I walked into the second church, St. Damiana Coptic Christian Church. They were praying by being on their knees and bowing towards the front of the room. I was shocked because this is not what I was expecting.
How's your food, Benton? We love Hummus Express.
Concept that I experienced when going on these trips was stereotyping. Before going to the Hummus Express, I found myself saying bad things about it. For example, like the food wasn't going to be very good and the place was probably going to smell bad, or it probably wasn't going to look real clean. So I was stereotyping, and when I got there, I found out that the place was actually nice there. Food didn't really please me when looking at it, but I'm sure it tasted good. I actually just bought a bowl of hummus and some pita bread, and that was really delicious. I really enjoyed their hummus.
If I could redo something on our trip, it would have been that we all went together to the locations. Abby, Benton, and I went to the locations together, but Hudson was not able to go at that time and had to go separately. I think we would have gotten a better experience all together and had more pictures. And the one moment in that experience that best sums up the whole experience was when we went to Hummus Express. We all sat and ate together and talked about our experiences at the other two churches and our current experience at Hummus Express. It summed up my experience because we shared our thoughts and feelings about the places and gained a cultural understanding of them.